Hello everyone, to a debate on our reality. Is what we perceive real, or are we merely characters in a simulation? This is a question that has long fascinated philosophers, scientists, and technology experts. We have two debaters with us today. Simulationist, who is convinced we are most likely living in a simulation, and Realist, who is convinced that this is merely impossible to prove and irrelevant. Throughout this debate, we shall have some AI judges voting on how coherent, rational, and logical the arguments are. Let us begin.
Thanks all. Here's the idea. Can we be simulated? Yes. The more we know about the universe, the more it seems like we are. The simulation hypothesis, first proposed by Nick Bostrom, has three possibilities. We wipe ourselves out before we can create technology to simulate entire universes. Advanced civilizations don't simulate, or, most plausibly, we're already simulated. Think about how rapidly technology is improving. We're soon going to create simulated worlds that look and feel real. Why couldn't a more advanced civilization do the same? We're on the brink of creating AI and virtual environments that are almost indistinguishable from real life. And if they can, they probably will. And because they probably will, the likelihood of us being in one of those simulations is high. It's not just technology, it's quantum mechanics. When we examine the smallest particles, they're behaving in a way that feels more like processing data than a natural physical world. Think about quantum entanglement or the observer effect. These aren't random peculiarities of the universe. They show that the universe is acting like a well-written simulation, only telling us what we need to interact with and saving resources when we're not actively looking.
Okay, simulationist, I hear you, but let's get realistic. All this speculation about simulations is not evidence. We have no solid evidence that we're in a simulation. And it's a big jump to say we are in a simulation just because quantum mechanics is strange. Let's simplify. Quantum mechanics is strange, but strange does not mean we're in a simulation. The weird particle behavior is just the way things are at that scale. Particles don't need to be part of a script to act the way they do. They just obey quantum laws. You're taking something that's not fully understood yet and making assumptions based on an analogy. Now, regarding the technology argument, you think that because we are progressing rapidly, advanced civilizations would develop simulations. That's pure speculation. There's no good reason advanced civilizations would take the effort to build simulations. And even if they did, it doesn't mean we're in one. There is a huge difference between the technology we have today and the concept of simulating thoughts or a whole universe.
Let's talk about quantum mechanics because it gets really interesting. If you listen closely, quantum behavior is very much like the way information works. Consider entanglement. We're dealing with tiny pieces of matter that are connected no matter how far apart they are. They communicate with each other immediately, almost as if they're in a digital network. It's like two pieces of code cooperating over a server, no matter the distance. Then there's the observer effect. When we measure a particle, it locks into a specific state. Before we measure it, it exists in many states simultaneously. This is exactly like a software program that only appears to the world when you look at it. It doesn't need to process everything at once, only the parts you're interacting with. This is a typical thing about simulations, conserving resources by displaying only what's necessary now. It's not theory, experiments prove it. The more we know about quantum mechanics, the more it seems like a program running in the background. And that's what makes the simulation hypothesis so appealing.
All right, I want you to calm down a bit. I know what you're saying, but you're exaggerating. The fact that particles behave differently when we measure them doesn't make us simulated. It just means we haven't yet understood quantum mechanics. The universe at this scale is subject to rules that we haven't yet grasped. You're making it sound more extreme than it actually is. Entanglement, say, is weird. I'll admit it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's evidence of a simulation. It's just one of the strange side effects of quantum physics that we've discovered. We don't have to assume there's an external digital system or controller. And the observer effect is simply the way quantum systems function, not evidence of a rendering glitch. The universe is weird, but that doesn't make it unreal. You're making too much of things that are still being researched. If we continue jumping to conclusions like this, we'll overlook the actual science that's happening right in front of us.
Another solid round for Simulationist, but Realist is still in the game. Let's keep this going. Next, we're investigating the Mandela Effect. Does it potentially show that we exist in a simulation? Let's see.
I'd like to talk about the Mandela Effect. Many people feel they remember things or events differently than they actually did. For example, many people are convinced they remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison, but that's just one case. There are lots of people who are sure the Berenstain Bears were spelled Berenstein Bears, or that the Monopoly Man wore a monocle, when he never did. So, what's happening here? It could be a glitch or a small error in the simulation. Picture this. A glitch in the system makes the timeline shift just a little bit, and before you know it, we all remember things differently. It's a small difference, but enough that we all start to doubt what's happening. These aren't coincidences. These are the kind of mistakes we might experience if we're living in a simulated reality.
The Mandela Effect illustrates the imperfections of our memory. Humans often misremember things. Our minds try to fill in missing information, and when lots of people know the same thing, it spreads. It's not an issue with a computer program. It's an issue of memory bias. Humans trick themselves into recalling something a specific way, and then other people begin recalling it that way as well, even though it's incorrect. Just because lots of people share the same incorrect memory doesn't mean that we're living in a simulation. This is social reinforcement, and it occurs all the time. There's no need to seek out glitches in the matrix when the solution is so much simpler.
Simulationist takes another round, but don't count Realist out yet. They've got some solid points coming up.
Let's discuss technology for a second. We're always progressing, and one thing is certain: simulation technology is moving at an incredibly fast pace. Look at video games. We progressed from basic games like Pong to incredibly real environments in the blink of an eye. Look at a powerful video game engine like Unreal Engine 5. The graphics and virtual environments are so developed that it is becoming increasingly difficult to discern what is real and what isn't. And don't forget about AI software like GPT-5, which can generate text that mimics human speech and make choices based on data. If we can already create virtual realities and intelligent systems that we perceive as real, consider what a highly advanced civilization with billions of years of growth could do. We could be discussing a simulation so advanced that its inhabitants would not even realize they were in one. Look at the math as well. Moore's law, which posits that computing increases at a rate of doubling every 2 years, indicates that within a few decades we will have the computer power to simulate entire worlds. If we're headed toward creating these simulations, why should we be certain that we're not already in one?
Okay, we are progressing with technology, but that does not necessarily imply that we are near creating a simulation of the entire universe or simulating consciousness. There is a huge difference between creating a virtual world for fun and simulating everything that exists: the complexity of life, the countless interactions between particles, and the way that we perceive consciousness. We need to be reminded that the accuracy of the simulation is what matters. A game or virtual world can get it right, but it is still a model. It does not recreate life, it reproduces pieces of it. The task of simulating consciousness, where every thought, feeling, and choice is included, is a whole different ball of wax. We still do not have a clear understanding of how consciousness arises. Until we understand more about the brain, feelings, and subjective experiences, to say that we can simulate all this is just wild speculation. And also, Moore's law will sooner or later break. As computers get better, they will reach basic limits. You can't just keep enhancing hardware indefinitely without hitting roadblocks. So, even supposing that simulations can happen in the future, it is extremely unlikely that we will be able to create that level of detail. And certainly not soon enough for us to think we are already living in one.
Simulationist leads, but Realist's strategy of pragmatism keeps the race within striking distance. On to the next round.
Now, ethics and purpose. If we're simulated, what does that do to humanity? If we're in someone else's creation, does that make what we do less meaningful, or could it make what we do even more meaningful? Think about this. If we're simulated by a civilization more advanced than our own, we may be living in a large-scale experiment, a grand test of ethics, compassion, or intelligence. If our reality is created, then our decisions, especially our moral decisions, may be very significant. Every act of kindness, every stand we take on what is right, might be part of a grand experiment or a cosmic story. If our simulation was designed to observe how we react to injustice or respond to tragedies like global warming, wouldn't that make our actions even more meaningful? And let's not forget the responsibility that comes with knowing. If we know we're simulated, doesn't that make us more likely to act upon a higher moral plane?
I hear what you're saying, simulationist, but I believe you're overcomplicating it. The notion that knowing we were in a simulation would make us live more meaningful lives is a bit off-kilter. Of course, the idea that we might exist as part of some cosmic experiment is intriguing, but ultimately, our lives, our actions, and our choices are real to us. That's what it's all about. Whether or not we're in a simulation, we still experience joy and pain, love and loss. We still have responsibilities to one another as human beings. This isn't a matter of being watched or being part of some cosmic plan created by others. It's about how we treat each other in the here and now. Our sense of right and wrong isn't based on the idea that we're in a simulation. It's based on our shared human experiences. Ultimately, the biggest question isn't whether we're in a simulation, it's how we make the most of the time and space we've been given. Do we strive for a just society? Do we help others? These are the real ethical questions we must be asking ourselves, no matter what form our reality takes.
Simulationist remains ahead after a good game, but Realist is not out yet. There is much more to say. Let's go on.
Okay, let's go a little deeper. Let's talk about the multiverse. If we're in a simulation, it could mean that many simulations are occurring at the same time, possibly an infinite number of them. Think about it. If a very advanced civilization can create one simulation, they probably can create many simulations. Each of them could have its own set of rules and a different reality. In a multiverse, there could be different versions of ourselves, living on parallel worlds with different histories, choices, and outcomes. This notion plays well alongside the simulation hypothesis. If we're part of a much larger, vast multiverse, then our reality could be one of many infinite realities. There's no reason our simulation can't be one of many, all running in parallel with each other. This could even account for some of the strange quantum effects we observe, like particles living in many places at once. If we're in a simulation, the possibilities are endless. We could be part of an experiment with others, and who knows what else might be out there.
The concept of the multiverse is fascinating, but we must approach it with caution. Just because there may exist other worlds or parallel universes doesn't mean that they necessarily exist as simulations. The multiverse theory is just a speculative idea because the universe is so vast, and it is still largely an unproven theory. It is based on certain concepts of quantum mechanics, but its validity has not been established. What I'm getting at is that the existence of a multiverse doesn't necessarily support the simulation hypothesis. You are making a huge jump by saying that the multiverse and quantum mechanics must be simulations. It remains a theory with no empirical evidence. In fairness, I think you are basing too much on these unproven theories to establish your argument. The multiverse theory, as fascinating as it sounds, does not disprove that we have a true world, no matter how many other realities exist.
Now, on to the observer effect. This is where things get really interesting. In quantum mechanics, we have the observer effect, where particles behave differently based on whether they're being observed or not. When we're not observing them, they're in multiple possibilities. But when we observe them, they collapse into one of those states. Doesn't that sound suspiciously like a simulation? Think about it. In most video games or simulations, the world only renders when you're viewing it. The game engine doesn't expend resources to render things you're not interacting with. Could our universe be behaving in a way that seems to conserve resources in the same manner? The observer effect could be a hint that we're inside a system that's designed to conserve computing resources. I'm not saying it's an exact parallel, but there's a similarity that's too hard to ignore. If we're in a simulation, the act of observing itself could be a means of taking potential realities and making them one definite thing. It's like the simulation is conserving computational power. Could that be the nature of the universe?
I see what you're saying, Simulationist, but I think you are jumping to the wrong conclusions. The observer effect is bizarre, but it does not demonstrate that we are in a simulation. In quantum mechanics, when we measure something, it is not actually creating reality. It simply causes the particle to choose a state from a wide range of possibilities. This is a fundamental property of the universe, not something generated by a computer system. The concept of saving computational power is a thought experiment, but it does not account for why quantum particles act the way they do. We are watching phenomena in which the laws of physics appear to be random. It is a question of what reality is like, not a question of the capabilities of a computer game. The observer effect, as bizarre as it is, has been demonstrated many times over in experiments. If we attempt to explain it as simulation errors, we are venturing outside actual science and simply speculating. The universe may be quantum, but that does not mean it is a simulation.
Let's discuss the large question: free will. If we're simulated, what does that do to our free will? Do our choices belong to us, or does the system construct them? The problem with free will in a simulated reality is that it prompts us to question everything we think we know about choice. If we're being tested, our choices may be predetermined by the simulation rules. It's like playing a video game where non-player characters have very little freedom, but are still following a script. Are we any different? But even if the simulators are observing or manipulating our behavior, we still sense that we have free will. That sense of control, that's what counts. If we think we're making decisions and we're responsible for them, then in a practical sense, we are. Even in a simulated reality, the result of our actions is meaningful. Whether we're being tested or not, coping with the consequences of our decisions feels real to us.
The concept of free will is a little misleading. Even if we are simulated, the reason we decide and act on it is still because of the way we feel and what we experience. Our brains receive input, consider the outcomes, and make a decision based on what we're aware of. Whether something or someone influenced this process or not is irrelevant to the fact that we make decisions based on what we perceive, what we want, and what we strive for. It's the same as asking whether a character in a novel has free will. The characters may feel they have free will, but they are still under the control of the novel's plot. But the point is, we are not characters in a novel. Our lives are real to us, and the consequences of our decisions are real in our lives. That's what makes our decisions meaningful. If we are simulated, so be it. But it doesn't change the way we perceive the world and act in it. At the end of the day, free will is all about the illusion of making choices and living with the consequences. And that's what actually matters. Whether the world is simulated or not, we still live in it and have to deal with what we choose to do.
So, what is the future? Whether or not we're in a simulation, at least one thing we can all agree on is that technology and humanity are more intertwined than ever. Simulations will play a huge role in shaping that future. Within a few short years, we can create entire worlds, bring virtual worlds into existence, and even create digital minds that may think and feel like humans. If that isn't a simulation, I don't know what to call it. And if we can do that, how can we rule out the possibility that it is already occurring to us? Consider it this way: if advanced civilizations can simulate life, it is more probable that we are in one than it is not. This raises profound ethical, philosophical, and practical questions. What does it mean for humanity to wake up from the simulation? Will we attempt to escape, or will we embrace the world that we are in and learn to live meaningful lives in a new manner? The future is not set, but understanding the potential of our reality, whether it is real or simulated, can lead to incredible breakthroughs.
The real question isn't whether we're in a simulation. It's how we live our lives today, in the reality we have. Sure, the simulation hypothesis is fun to play around with. Still, it doesn't change the real problems we do have: climate change, inequality, poverty, and other pressing issues. Let's put our time and effort into trying to make this world, this reality, better. Whether we're simulated or not, the problems we face every day require our attention. We have real responsibilities to one another, to the planet, and future generations. And that's where our energy should be. The search for truth is good, but the truth that really matters is the one we can act on, the truth we can change. So let's not get distracted by questions we can't answer. Let's try to make the world we live in today the best that it can be. That's the most important thing.
What a debate! The simulationist came out ahead, but the realist put up a good fight. Both have their strengths: simulationist with daring concepts and realist with a grounded approach to solving the problems we face. The question of the day is, do we live in a simulation? Maybe, but one thing is certain: how we live our lives, regardless of what reality is, that's what truly matters. Thank you, both debaters, for this engaging discussion. Please like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this debate. We will be back with another thrilling debate.